Thank you for joining me to explore the concept of connecting to the soul of the unborn baby. My name is Robyn Sheldon. I'm a midwife, a doula, and a soul integration shaman. And I am really passionate about this idea of how do we bring a sacred element back into birth in order to really support our babies in this process of emerging, of landing, of becoming embodied. And so the work that I do is with parents to connect to the souls of their babies pre-conception, during pregnancy, sometimes during birth, and sometimes after birth, if they've experienced a traumatic birth, for instance, or if they may be working with an adopted baby and so on. But all of it is around helping the parents to figure out how do they assist this soul of the baby to maintain its integrity and really be fully present as part of the experience of living on earth. So many of us are very significantly disconnected from our soul selves, disconnected therefore because the soul self and the body haven't properly merged at birth and so on, that we're disconnected from this experience of being on earth, from one another, from ourselves, from the earth itself. There was a Scottish psychotherapist in the 20th century, a little bit early, mid-20th century, called R.D. Laing, who described how a mystic is swimming in the same seas that a psychotic is drowning in. And these seas of consciousness that he's talking about are really is the area, it's the stuff that we work with in the soul connection, soul integrations sessions, and that's why it's shamanic, because it's working with these worlds within worlds, these larger spheres of consciousness that are not so familiar to us. And as facilitators, our work is to guide people through them so that they feel safe, so that they can swim and not get a sense in any way that they're drowning, in order to connect, first of all, to their own soul selves, and then through that to begin communicating with the souls of the unborn babies. I live on the Okavango Delta in Botswana, which is southern Africa, and maybe you can see the river behind me there, and these amazing sunsets that we have every evening. And the reason why, and the river often has elephants in it. Last night there were, I think, 20 elephants down at the river there, and hippos, occasionally crocodiles. And the reason why this is important for me to mention in terms of the presentation that I am putting together for you is because the earth here is still remarkably healthy and very wild, and that helps me to stay connected to the rhythm and the pulse of nature. It helps me to stay grounded, it helps me to keep my heart open. And these are all things that are incredibly important in terms of holding space for assisting our clients to really tune into the souls of their babies when they're working with them. Back in about 2010, I was attending a meeting with 3 other wonderful women who were, 2 were professors and 1 a senior obstetric consultant at the University of Cape Town in the obstetrics department. And we were discussing the issue of obstetric violence, which at the time was a real problem in some of the hospitals and clinics in the area. And they were doing a fantastic job at actually addressing the issue. So we were talking initially about compassionate care, which was something that I was teaching in tutorials to the medical students at the time. And the one professor was saying how she felt that that was such a valuable thing to add to the curriculum, but that she found it a little bit difficult that I kept referring to this topic of love that didn't really fit that easily in academia. And we kind of laughed about it and decided that that was important, that it should be continued to be mentioned and so on. And then I said to her, you know, the real issue that we're dealing with here, and the thing that we really should be addressing as the most crucial aspect of it, is that we need to bring something of a sacred quality back into the birth room. And what she did is she folded her arms and she leant back in her chair and she said, well, Robyn, that's taking things just one step too far. And it was kind of funny and kind of sad. And I have the most enormous respect for these women. I mean, they did and were doing an incredible job. They were heroes of mine. And so I kind of took it away with me. And I guess it made an impact on me, because what has become almost the most important thing to me in terms of working in the birth arena is this quality of the sacred, is this quality of needing to bring reverence back into birth. And I guess that arises out of the soul integration work, but that it also arises out of the recognition of how little it's actually appreciated. So I'd like to start this presentation with a short video clip that I made previously around the journey of the incoming soul. It just gives some context to the connecting to the soul as a presentation. There is in the center of this clip a short little piece around violent birth and the impact of violent birth and the images of a cesarean section. So I just want to emphasize that, of course, violent births don't only happen at cesarean sections, they can happen anywhere, in any place. It doesn't, at vaginal birth, at a home birth, and they're usually caused by the caregivers not being fully connected to the people in their care.
I come from far away, further than your wildest imaginings. I am called to you, and in the calling, my soul weaves itself into the unique symphony that is me, into the curled up fetus that will become my home. In ancient times, people would listen to the whisper of the wind and the silence of the land until they heard my song, and they would call me to them. The birth keepers would sing my song to me on my journey into the world, and I would land softly in the welcoming cushion of my mother's belly, where her breasts smelled like home. But in these times, I come crashing to earth, burning at the bright lights, torn away from my mother before I have fully entered my tiny body. When life is violent, birth is violent, and so I anchor violence in my awareness. I become part of the violence that is our world. It is a spiral of discontent. soften birth and you soften life. Slow down and you begin to care. Find your own soul symphony. Then you will begin to hear my song. Here I begin. Here I begin.
This quality of Ubuntu, which means I am me because you are you, is something that is very fundamental to the process of connecting to the souls of unborn babies. The way we as facilitators hold a session is what makes the biggest difference to whether or not our clients are able to really communicate well with the soul of their incoming spirit babies. Quality of our attention is really the most important thing. Our organization in Southern Africa called Mama Bamba, which assists people to really connect to their unborn babies and to have soulful births, to train doulas and so on, means mother embrace in the African languages of isiXhosa and isiZulu. And the type of facilitation that we offer to the people that we work with draws from ancient traditions, contemporary studies, our own instinctual body wisdom, and of course the knowing of our unborn babies. Maria did a session for connecting to the soul of her unborn baby with me this morning. This is her fourth child, but the third child that she's done unborn child connection sessions with. So the previous child, she was struggling to conceive him. She knew that he was there. She was longing for him to come, and it was just taking a while to conceive. So she came to see me to figure out if there was anything blocking it. She cleared something and then got pregnant that evening. She was very clear about it. She phoned me the next day and said, I became pregnant last night. And in fact, she did. So this is now a little clip about the baby that she's pregnant with at the moment. Ask the consciousness now of the unborn baby in your belly to take form.
It's very clear, another little elephant. But it's funny, it's a little cheerful one with like beads and a little hat, almost like like if you would read a children's book, how they would describe a circus. But he's not a captured pet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also calm, playful.
What does it feel?
Very connected and very familiar again. It's nothing new.
Ask him for a message. What is his message to you?
So there aren't really any words that are coming in. I can describe an energy. Like there's a joy for life and for what is to come. Like really a space of just surrendering. I don't feel like I need to prove anything to myself or to anybody. It's more really about the connection.
And then just getting a sense of what is the kind of energy that he would like to receive from you to support him in his life. What is the What is the best kind of support you can give to him as this elephant?
So he is just sitting in front of me.
Mm.
There's he's kind of continuing that picnic on his own.
All by himself.
I'm getting this vibe of it almost feels like he's just kind of here to bring joy. Yeah, I think it's a very much of a fulfillment, like a completion,
Mm.
round, like a roundness
Mm.
to it.
Mm. We all know from the mindfulness movement and from Eckhart Tolle and so on the importance of being here, being present, and just setting up for the whole work of connecting to the soul of the unborn baby, this attention to coming back to being here, being present in a way that we slow down is fundamental. Before we begin any session, connecting with the soul of the unborn baby, as facilitators, we come back into a place of holding space, of being present and aware, as a place of what is called generative listening, where we're simply present without trying to manipulate or change the situation at all. Simply there in a way that allows whatever is occurring to come to us without having an agenda. And in order to do that, it's necessary to take a moment or two before the client arrives to simply settle. So we're just going to do that as a group now. It's okay to do it with eyes open or closed, and it can be quite quick because it's simply coming back to the present moment, and yet it's also about slowing down. So breathing deeply into the belly, long, slow belly breaths. Noticing the sounds and the silence beneath the sounds. And then becoming aware for a moment of how we have the capacity in our human form to be both limited as humans, experiencing life as we know it on earth, and simultaneously merged and aware of the experience of the soul self, which is vast, expansive, objective, and compassionately capable of holding what the little me or you is going through. So just bringing awareness now into the sense of self as what we experience physically and emotionally and mentally, being held by the witness consciousness or the soul self that is non-judgmental and unconditionally loving. Before we can elicit stillness in our clients, we need to first find it in ourselves. So just taking a moment to sit quietly without my voice, in silence. So here is a quote by a psychotherapist called John Tarrant. He says, "At the moment of birth, the spirit is life itself, all there is. But there's nothing to hold the experience. While soul and character may be developing moment by moment, they have not yet arrived. In our maturity, often the opposite is true. Consciousness is developed, but the openness is not there. In order to grow, we have to take a particular form and forswear all others, to develop a way of loving and fighting, a taste in music and in food. We choose without knowing where our choice will lead. We are shaped by what we seize and what we refuse. This path is human and good, but we pay for it with the loss of the original fusion with the eternal, when spirit filled most of our days. So when spirit comes to an adult, it comes as a return and as an astonishment, impossible, beautiful, alarming. It cracks us open." And this is how it is with our babies, born, unborn, on a soul level. They crack us open. And as facilitators, it is our work to support the sacred quality of being with them. First, we slow down, then we drop into stillness. Then our behinds become still. Sometimes they need to clear blocks or mistrust. Once that's done, they can connect to their soul selves, and then finally are they ready to meet the unborn babies. I'd like to talk about the electromagnetic field that we swim in, that surrounds us, is within us, and is part of every living entity, so including the earth, the rocks, the air that we breathe, and one another. And the reason why it's important for us to consider what this means, this expanse of life force energy that we inhabit, is that if we are going to connect with the unborn babies, we need to do so in a way where they are resonating at the same frequency, the same electromagnetic frequency as we are, in order to be able to facilitate the easiest and highest form of communication. And so what happens is when we're born, and through the experiences that we have in life, which are difficult and contract us down into defensive modes of behavior and so on, we create these barriers around us that inhibit our access to that level of wisdom that is still carried by the unborn children. And so in order to be able to really create good connections, the most important thing that we can do is take a deep look at what it is that we are holding in terms of our own electromagnetic frequency. And so what I've done here is I've created a graph. You don't need to read this, I'll just explain it, which describes something of the electromagnetic field in emotional terms that we carry as humans. And this actually impacts on the way that we can interact with the souls of the unborn baby. So it's quite important to understand as an underlying foundation for how this works. So what I've created in this graph is a yang axis, which is a movement upwards towards a heavenly state, away from that which is kind of earthly and bound down into the muck and the messiness and the passion and the intense emotions and the love and heartfulness that is inherent in the yin axis down here, which is the earthly axis. And so if we look at the emotional states that lie on the yang axis and compare them to those on the yin axis, the yang axis moves from, they both do, from the lowest frequency where they're very, very contracted here up to very expanded states of being. So the expansive states of being are like love, compassion, joy, ease, wisdom, an ability to be very clear thinking, and so on. The yang attributes that are high frequency are those that are more intellectual, like rationality, wisdom, clear thinking, light, a movement towards spirituality and towards God as external to the world. It's also involved with like Kundalini yoga, for instance, which is a meditation tradition where the focus is to bring the energy up and out through the top of the head towards the heavens. And then the earth-based high frequency qualities of energy are love, nurturing, intuition, mystery, fiercely protective in a maternal kind of way, shamanism, stillness, and the feeling or the the quality is kinesthetic, or if this would be clairvoyance, this would be an ability to understand deeper levels of consciousness through the felt sense and so on. And then both of them, as they move down towards more contracted states of being, which is what we do when we become defensive through our experiences in life, is the yang axis becomes judgmental. It abuses power, like the rapist, the murderer. It's tyrannical, it's the oppressor. Whereas the yin axis moves down towards the victim, and the victim can also be manipulative. So the victim exerts their sense of power through the lack of power, which is a bit difficult to understand. It's a bit like the woman who is bedridden, the old granny who's bedridden, and demands that everybody comes to see her every day and spends an enormous amount of time taking care of her and so on, because poor me, I'm a victim. That kind of manipulative abuse of power. It's also very secretive and also sort of a little bit devious and so on as well. So these two need each other down in the lower contracted states of being to feed off one another. The oppressor needs a victim, the victim needs an oppressor in order to be able to fulfill their roles. And so what we want to do, and so on earth we live in this very contracted state most of the time, whereas the unborn babies are still resonating at a very high frequency of energy because they haven't contracted down into defensiveness yet. So in order to be able to connect with them, we need to move up to these higher states of energy. And then when we're resonating at a high yang state of energy and are able to really be active out in the world and fulfill a vast vision of how it is to create good in the world, for instance, it's very often quite well balanced with or it needs to be, actually, it needs to create a dance between the yang and the yin qualities of love and nurturing. And this dance happens within the body as well. So this might be up in the, almost like the third eye and so on, and this is down in the womb. And there's also, or down at the base of the spine, and there's it's like a cerebrospinal fluid connection between the two, but they're energetically, physically, and emotionally, in order to achieve health, we need to create this dance between the two. There's also this beautiful quote by T.S. Eliot, which is called, without the point, the still point, there would be no dance, and there is only the dance. And so we have the dance between the receptive yin states of being and the active yang states. And then we also have the dance between being embodied in human form and being present simply as a soul pre-conception. And those come together almost like in the still point of the conception itself. When it comes to conception and implantation actually of the conceptus into the womb, what's really important is that the womb is a comfy space. It needs to be a place that the embryo can really land in. And one of the things that makes a womb comfortable is, first of all, we need to be comfortable in that area of our bodies as well. If I'm not comfortable in my own womb space, how can that be a comfy space for a baby to land in? So it's quite important to do the work that's necessary to perhaps release some of the trauma that so many of us carry in that area of our body. It's a place of deep intimacy and enormous sensitivity where we can easily lock challenging and difficult experiences in as quite significant trauma. And so there's a sense of really the value of being able to hold that whatever we have in our wombs with an enormous amount of tenderness and compassion. In order to be able to almost like relax the womb space, and then also in order to allow it to become receptive, because it's quite important that that we recognize that for the womb to receive a baby, it needs to be yin. Yin is receptive. Yin is also traditionally known as the feminine, intuitive, heart-opening quality of being. And so there's a need to slow down, a need to be less active, a need to just actually rest in the womb in order to really enhance our ability to conceive or to implant the baby. And of course, it's not as if the baby can't land in a womb that is uncomfortable. But wouldn't you rather, if you were that incoming soul, kind of find yourself in a space that you go, this is cool, I like to be here. Yeah. And so the question arises, how do we create a comfy womb space or connect with the soul of the unborn baby or with the universe and the vastness of our soul selves? And then the way that we engage with this vast sense of an expanded or contracted universe is actually through the imagination, through the felt sense and through the imagination. And it is through holding sacred space that we can assist our clients to get in touch with their imagination, which is as vast and expansive as the cosmos, as the universe itself. Soul is not the imagination. It employs the languages of this imagination, this body, this breath, this feeling, and this thought to awaken in this life. Soul is the vehicle of the great mystery, and it is secured in love. So imagination is the language of the gods. It's the language of the hell realms. It's the language of expanded consciousness beyond this constricted sense of Robyn in this moment. And yet it is still within this present moment. It is the
sensory experience. So we have these 5 senses, and then we have many other senses as well. We have the sense of the emotions that are experienced within the body. We have the sense of otherness and self. There are all these different sensory experiences within this present moment, and the imagination is also a sensory experience. It's the experience of possibility. And through the imagination, I can tap into that which is very subtle and as yet not explored. So the imagination is just moving into what is here in this present moment that I have not yet encountered and understood as something that I might describe as real, as in physical, and yet it is as real and as filled with experience as the seeing, touching, tasting. And the imagination is what creates the possibilities for the future. If I can imagine something, I can bring it into being. Truly is it's the gift of being human. So my dog might imagine, my dog might be in the present moment fully when she is looking at a bird and wondering whether to chase it or not, and so on. But as a human being present fully includes this incredible capacity for imagination. So as humans, we have the ability to feel ourselves as separate, to be consciously aware of this experience of being human as a separate being with a rational mind that can think and construct. And as humans, we have the possibility to imagine and through the imagination create whole new worlds of being.
I'd like to take a moment to describe the sessions, give an explanation of how the sessions work and a sense of the timeline of a session for connecting to the soul of the unborn baby. Normally a session is 3 hours long, 2.5 to 3 hours long. And that seems like quite a long time because, in fact, the actual communication with the unborn child usually happens towards the end of the session, and the majority of time in the session is spent on assisting the client to hold the highest frequency of consciousness that they are capable of attaining within the session in order to really resonate at the same level as the soul of the incoming baby. And the way that we do that is, first of all, make sure that we're holding a very conscious sense of stillness and presence ourselves in order to be able to listen deeply and in order to be able to create a space that feels trustworthy. And then we guide the client after a certain amount of time in conversation with them, just to get a sense of who they are, where they are, what kind of languaging to use in the session that they can resonate with well. So not too spiritual, for instance, with somebody who is a scientist or a very rational person. And then having established that sense of ease with the client, then guide them through a relaxation process in order to allow their quite controlling intellectual mind to just take a little bit of a back seat so that their right brain, more imaginative sense of self can flow more easily. And then using this process of active imagination, we guide them first of all to just start talking about where they are and finding a space that they can put themselves in where they feel really comfortable and they can really start connecting that sense of peacefulness and ease into their physical body. So we bring everything back to the physical body all the time. It's a very somatic process indeed. Then having done that, we go through a process of guiding them to become in touch with their own soul selves, and once again let the archetypal energy of their particular unique soul self touch them and let them really feel and connect in on a bodily level with that soul self. And then once they've done that, they're in a space where it's usually quite easy for them to really start imagining the unborn child and beginning to ask it questions, answer it, get a sense of what the energy of it is, how they can support it through birth, through life, through pregnancy, etc., through conception and so on. And so every session, even though that sounds slightly formulaic, every session is very unique because it depends on where somebody's going in the session. And very often we spend a fair amount of time actually assisting the client to clear away the constrictions and defenses that might inhibit their deeper connection to their own soul self. Soft, intimate, precious self that resides deep in the belly.
Love, the sense of the love, that energy. It's not the love as in the sentimental or heart love in that way. It's a love that it's an energy. It's a magnetic thing that pulls things into being from this space, from this emptiness, from this dark. This dark that is not necessarily dark. It's like a dark that is full of light at the same time.
Get a sense of what is the message in that for you. What message does this quality of being that you are experiencing now have for you?
But it's like this quality of containing. Like within this love, everything has a place. The same quality of the pureness is at the center, but it has kind of filtered through all of these other layers, you know? So at the center, it kind of takes its colorings, which this is what we call more the individual. So its colorings, it's an interesting. But now I'm seeing this sense of there can be this distortion going through the levels, but at the center it remains with its same purity, just that in a way where it can be used by the, I don't know, the incarnation, the individual, comes to mind again. Then it descends through the layers, or it condenses through the layers, and then at its center it still has that quality, that same love, pure quality, but in a way where it can be used by the incarnation as a whole. Those alive in so many different ways. Electric, ecstatic, opened, like an open vessel to receive her, temple for her. Yeah, I feel like I'm a temple of worship now for her. And it feels like everything is a temple of worship. Like the whole of the earth is her temple. It's her.
In a different session, but still with Rose, she described her unborn child as follows. She said, "It's almost like I can see the connection between my heart and womb where the baby is. There's a strong red force connecting us. She's a naughty, cheeky elf with a grin and then a laugh like music." There's this sense of the baby on a on a soul level that is quite extraordinary, because it's still so vast. Its perception of, or its consciousness, is so way beyond our limited way of being in the world that that we create for ourselves through closing down whenever we have challenging experiences that we don't engage with fully. And so a baby just has this immense quality of unconditional love. And then when we really work with connecting to the baby in its soul form before it's born, there's the most extraordinarily miraculous sense of not only mystery but of incredible wisdom that is so way beyond what we usually expect a baby to hold. We normally think that a baby is helpless and that we're responsible for it and we're the wise ones and they don't know anything and we've got to teach them everything. And actually the baby is like that sunset behind me. It's just like vast and holds us, just like I'm being held by the sunset. And if we can really get into a space of recognizing how our babies are carry this essential quality of being that isn't interrupted by thinking too much or by planning or by doing. They're just simply there. They're just simply present. And when they're in the womb, they're often way beyond the womb in terms of what they're experiencing and so on as well. And so connecting to the soul of the unborn baby is valuable also for the birth itself. Because what it does is it can help the parents to stay connected to the child on a soul level during labor. And it's extraordinary what an impact that has on the labor itself, particularly vaginal birth without too many medical interventions and so on. I remember this one client had she had a first birth. I was present at the first birth, which was pretty average, kind of good, fine birth and so on. And then the following baby, she wasn't even working with me, but she was doing some in-depth work on connecting with the baby on an energetic, electromagnetic level and so on. And during labor, she had this very, very strong cord of pink light that went from her womb, I think, all the way up to the sense of the baby above her head. And she was having one contraction every 20 minutes. And her labor lasted 2.5 hours, and then the child just popped out. And she was in a very transcendent state, a very altered state of consciousness during the labor, because of the fact that she was resonating at such a high frequency, because she was so connected to the soul of her baby. And then I also just wanted to speak about how I had a couple of people come back to me after their babies were born to say that they visualized the baby on a soul level. One actually, there were two particular people. One talked about the baby being here, and the other one, the baby was above the other shoulder, and they were very present and holding them and keeping them really in a safe and quite deeply connected kind of place all the way through the labor. And then as the baby emerged from the womb, each of them reported back, without any encouragement from me to have them say that this energy field of the baby just went shoop down into the baby as the body of the baby emerged from the womb. Actually, as the baby had crowned, and then when the body was coming out, and so on. So if they can stay that connected, what happens is that they then remain aware of the sacred nature of the moment of birth, and how the moment of birth is a massive imprint. It's a primal imprint for this child that impacts on it long term. And then if they are resonating at a soul level with the baby at that moment, it's a very different imprint that the baby engages with at that first moment. Sometimes during a session, when the parent or whoever is doing the session is connecting to the soul of the unborn baby, the babies can be extremely chatty, and at other times they can just simply be speaking through the quality of their energy. So it's very dependent on partly the character or the energy of the baby, but also very often on the way that the client is perceiving what's going on a soul level. So some people are much more visual, some people are more oral, some people are kinesthetic, and they feel the energy of the baby through just their emotional kind of state as they are connecting to it. And I remember, well, actually I've had a couple of clients whose babies, one in particular was very, very bossy, and gave her very, very clear, quite strict instructions about how she had to set up the birth room, what she had to do, and the particular music she had to play, and what its name was, and how she needed to be in labor, but very specific, and also very clear sense of who it was in terms of what it looked like, and what its energy was like, and what it wanted after birth, and even down to the color of the clothes that it wanted to be put in and stuff like that. So, and then other people can have more of a, almost like a very heart-opening experience. It's extraordinary how many people come out of a session afterwards and just go, wow. That was something that I never expected, because of the fact that I didn't realize that my baby could really be carrying such a sacred quality of energy, such a high frequency of consciousness, such an amazing sense of it on a soul level. And it's always a privilege and an honor to be witness to that.
I think I had the most deep sense with our second child, James, but actually in retrospect it was similar with all three, and that being that this individual that will be born is so much more than a baby, and this the vision or the image that I saw with James was actually an individual bigger than me, and it was just the silhouette of this huge person in front of me. And that blew me away. It was just like, this is more than a baby. This is a whole person with depth and character, and yeah, and that, so that actually just made me look at it completely differently.
Yeah, I think similarly, the sessions allowed me to deepen the connection with that being and that was growing in my tummy. I mean, I already had a strong sense, but just to really go there and see the baby in context of this much greater picture of life and death, and what it means to come into the world, and have a which does a change. There's deep respect. It's not like this age hierarchical thing, you know, this kind of this infant, actually huge respect for the soul that's journeying down into earth, to earth. And you know, I'm not to say that I'm just the vehicle, but it is that as well. You know, there's I'm a vehicle for this being that is beyond time and space until they come into earth.
One of the things that I've always found really interesting about the soul integration sessions, and also slightly challenging for me at times, was how the babies are always reflecting back to the parents that are communicating with them. This real sense of unconditional love and wisdom, and yet at the same time, when perinatal psychologists take adults through a regression back into their womb experiences, very often the experience for the adult is one of recognizing how the trauma that they might have experienced while they were in the womb has actually impacted on them later on in life. And both of these two very different points of view are absolutely valid. And it seems to me that what's actually happening is, when the soul of the baby is gestating, or when the baby is gestating, the consciousness of the baby, the soul of the baby, is vast and expanded way beyond the little body of the fetus. So the mother or the partner, or whoever it might be, experiences trauma that is felt by the fetus and is locked into the body of the fetus, but the experience of the consciousness of the fetus is way beyond the body. So that when the baby is then born, what happens is it actually then lands into this body that has been holding the trauma, and it then experiences the trauma from there onwards. But while it's in the womb, it's not having to actually find itself in the body the whole time. And so what is valuable, I think, about sessions and actually work that we do with connecting to the baby in the womb, is that we can help the parent who is looking at the trauma that the baby might have been experiencing or something, to actually release what it is that they experienced from on a somatic level in the cells of their own body, so that the baby then releases it, so that it doesn't have to be carried further forward into the being played out in the baby's life as well. And you can do this through this process of active imagination. And then carrying on from this description of how parents experience the soul of the baby when it's still in the womb, when they're doing sessions, is another viewpoint that I came across that really does resonate very closely with the soul level of consciousness that the baby seemed to be resonating at, was a description by Rudolf Steiner, who was an anthroposophist in the early 20th century, where he described the journey of the incoming soul. And I found it fascinating because it related so well with what's happening in session. So what he says happens is that at the moment of conception, when the sperm and the ovum meet, it's almost like the baby descends into matter, into becoming, and there's this enormous explosion, which is, I think he described it like a big bang, and the consciousness of the soul shoots out into the cosmic sphere. And so if we look at these terms archetypally, the cosmic sphere is almost like oneness consciousness. It's a huge, expansive state of being one with all that is. And then gradually, as pregnancy progresses, the soul of the baby comes closer to the physical body of the baby, and then lands and sits for quite a number of months in what Rudolf Steiner describes as the lunar sphere. And again, archetypally, a lunar field would be one that is very connected to the subconscious or the unconscious, to dream states, to the waters, to that kind of quite mysterious sort of flow of life that is almost, I would say, quite feminine. And it when it's in that space, it seems to then be absorbing something of the unconscious awareness or unconscious qualities and energies of the parents as well. It starts to kind of to form its sense of identity as a human around this unconscious quality that the parents are carrying. And then it comes closer and closer in and goes through the birth, but it's still not fully in the body during the birth, whether the birth is a vaginal birth or a cesarean section. And then at the moment that it emerges into the world, when the air touches its skin, when it takes its first breath, and when it just like it lands, there's a whew, and there's a sense of okay, now the soul of the body, the soul of the baby and the physical body of the baby become merged, become one. And it's really important for that moment to be recognized, to be held as sacred, to be given a pause. There needs to be this moment of stillness in order for the soul of the baby to merge fully. Otherwise, that process gets arrested, and then, like most of us on earth, we end up walking around only half embodied and not really connected to the sense of a physical self. Nobody listening to this presentation needs me to emphasize the fact that babies really ask us to make birth into a sacred space, into a space where they are seen and revered as they arrive. This quote from Mother Teresa brings us back to this idea of what we need to do to create the sacred space. She says, speak tenderly to them. Let there be kindness in your face, in your eyes, in your smile, in the warmth of your greeting. Always have a cheerful smile. Don't only give your care, but give your heart as well. When I work with people who are connecting to the soul of the spirit babies, or I connect to people who have already adopted a child, and then they do a session where they are tapping into the soul of this adopted child. What they're very aware of, and what comes through from the soul of the child, is how I was always coming to you. And I didn't come to you via the conventional route. I decided that it was important for our soul journeys that I arrived via a different kind of mode of entry. It's an extraordinary thing for a person to recognize when they're interacting with the soul of their child, of their adoptive child, how much the child says to them through their own mouths, even when they didn't believe it themselves beforehand. I'm here because I'm on a journey with you, and I was always coming to be with you. So part of the unborn child connection work includes working with people who are struggling to conceive, people who are adopting, sometimes people who have lost a baby and the baby has gone back to source. The following video is something that I was working with a particular client on in order to assist her in her journey towards conception. So if your journey has been one where you have been struggling to conceive, very often there's a sense of, well, of course, there's this monthly feeling of grief, of like hope that maybe this is the month that it might happen and so on, and then at the time of menstruation, oh no, not this month, oh, my hope has been dashed again. And there's this longing for a baby, and then it's not fulfilled, and then the longing increases, and something of that longing can sometimes impact on the ability for the body to conceive. If you think about how often we all hear stories about somebody who didn't manage to conceive for years and years and years, then they adopt a baby, and then within 6 months of adoption, they just magically fall pregnant. And it's because the body has let go of that intense longing, so it allows the body to just fall into a more natural kind of place and so on. So that's a very, very difficult thing to do, because if we're longing, how do we let go of the longing? And one of the things that is possible to do is to really form a connection with the spirit baby, and to kind of go, okay, this is the spirit baby that is waiting for me, and I have a relationship with it, even though it's not a physical relationship. It's an emotional relationship, it's a spiritual relationship, it's a relationship of love. And so then working with the spirit baby to dialogue, to communicate, to really kind of get a sense of how you are to one another and so on, can actually fill something of that hole in the longing, and that filling that gap in the longing can make a huge difference to this body's ability for the womb to just be comfortably open and receptive, instead of tense from longing. Yeah. And the following clip is an interview I did with a client who, just about, I guess in a way, the trauma that she experienced on her journey of dealing with this constant grief of not being able to fall pregnant and so on.
Summarize it, we did about 7 or 8 rounds of fertility treatments, including IVF and IUIs, which is intrauterine insemination, none of which worked, even remotely. We then stepped, I think the last time we did the last IVF, we only obtained 1 egg. It didn't fertilize. And I said, I'm done. This is where I draw the line. I am tired of expecting this of my body, even though I have moved through this process with as much awareness and consciousness and grace and kindness as I possibly can. I cannot expect of my body to do what it clearly is not capable of doing right now. So I need to look at something else. And by amazing series of events, we got the option to adopt embryos. And that first round of embryo transfers also failed. So by that time, I was just about done with it. And I remember saying to myself, today I am actually going to sit in meditation. I am serious about this, and I am going to ask the powers that be, inside, outside, out there, in there, children, anyone, like, is this happening or not? Because I cannot go on like this. I am literally just going to sit and wait. And that's what I did. I sat in silence. I sat in meditation. I sat and I just waited and I waited. And I was like, absolutely zero expectations. And after a while, I just felt this warm sensation over the right side of my body. And until today, I feel that was my boy, my son, gone, and his spirit. And it was like, don't worry, I'm on my way. And I was like, what? I was seeking for special things wherever I went, and it was huge. It was healing as well. It's almost like you go through these things, and like, let's just call it what it is. It is traumatic. It is. There is an element of trauma to it, but it is also very nurturing and healing and almost empowering to show up with a different energy. Yeah.
Absolutely.
There are times when I miss going through that process because of all the incredible connections that I made with people. For you, like you, for instance, and the sessions that we did together, and the unborn child connection, and it was an incredibly enriching experience, and something that has equipped me for so many aspects of not only motherhood, but, just life. It has fortified me.
So, my experience of I did a pre-birth connection to unborn child session with Robyn for my 3rd baby, and she, it's clear to me the difference between having done it with her and not having done it with my other 2. She's 13 now. And she was born at home, and they were also born at home. And in this session, I connected to, the vastness of who she is, the vastness of who her soul is coming into the world. And so when she was born, I could see and recognize that. So she was born in 10 centimeters of water in the birth pool because she was so fast, the birth pool hadn't quite filled up. And then we just sat in, it filled up around us, and we just sat in the water for a long time. And I just gazed into her eyes, and those baby eyes, which they do feel so deep, and like, I really experienced a connection to I'll say it again, her vastness or her connection to the vastness. And it's, yeah, and throughout her, that time, that baby time, I experienced that with her throughout that time. And then growing up, she's very creative, very passionate. She's got this huge heart. She's also quite messy and yeah, very individual, but kind as well. And it's felt like I've, through experiencing that part of her, have had this strong, clear sort of impetus to protect and defend her creative wildness, and hopefully, I mean, and I think, therefore, like protecting her from, to a certain extent, from the things that limit us from being our full selves. That she's more able to be fully her, and that quality of what I mean by when I say fully her is like fully, yeah, more fully connected to the wildness. I mean, what are we fundamentally is actually that vastness, and it feels like I was shown that shown that was her, that is us, and got to really like it became more tangible to me through the experience of the connection before she was born, and then because of the connection before she was born, the connection after she was born. Yeah, I feel so so grateful actually for that, and it was for those 3 hours, after session, that gave that to me. Yeah.
So the soul work continues for us at Mama Bamba, whether it is through offering the soul connection sessions, either online or in person, to people who are working with their unborn babies, preconception, during pregnancy, at birth, after birth, or offering online courses like for pregnant parents at the moment. I've just made one called My Magical Birth Journey, or doula trainings online and in person, which really connect in quite deeply with the sacred aspect of supporting people in labour and at birth and postpartum. Thank you for watching. It was a pleasure to create this presentation.